Oh, you've done this before.
I have done this before. Did you bring enough for everyone?
Mr. Getz brought that, actually.
And it's cashews from the arcade.
Oh, I thought it was like a sandwich.
No. Cashews is just some, just to get you through.
I'm having pass them around.
Oh, I'll pass them around. Are they chocolate covered?
No, I wasn't gonna. It's January. Everybody's on a diet in January.
Unless the healthiest month of the year.
Send them back. You can pass them around again.
This is the first couple. Well,
Okay,
right.
can I call the meeting to order, everybody? Which I just did. You've got the agenda, and what I'd like to do is go through some of the things we talked about at the last meeting, which was really largely organizational, and apologize for not getting you the agenda or this slide deck until today because of holiday schedules and so forth. I fell a little bit behind, but there won't be any pressure today because after we go through some of the updates on the website and how we take requests and so forth, then the next thing I want to do is go through just how the Metro budget works, very briefly, very high level, so that everybody around the table's got a level set understanding of what it is that we're talking about. Then next, what I want to do is divide up the government amongst members and establish a group that will look largely at revenue opportunities, both long and short term. And then we need to discuss a process for legal and financial review of ideas and how we're going to report to each other. Does anybody have any amendments to that approach? Okay. So in terms of updates, the IT department has put on the Blue Ribbon Commission website, which can be found under Boards and Commissions, a survey box which allows the public to submit ideas directly. IT will be collecting those and distributing those to us in spreadsheet format on a cumulative basis, but that you could easily sort for most recent items. Okay. They've also developed a social media campaign to promote that input across the county to people who are interested in that as well. And then additionally, the wonderful finance department is including in their budget requests to department heads asking for responses to the charge of this committee. So we'll actually have some input from department heads that will go to the charge of the committee, which is to look at cost reduction, cost avoidance types of scenarios. So that's the update on that.
Emily, I was asked to check with HR about getting employee input, and Shannon Hall said it probably having a portal like we've set up at the commission site wouldn't be very effective or something they could do, but that if we wanted, they can get word out to employees separately if we want to have something like that to encourage employee participation.
That's great, yeah. I think the more, the better. And then if we can point them to that survey box, that aggregates it in a format that's easy for us to review and use and sort, prioritize, and so forth. Okay, so anything else on old business that we discussed last week? HR?
Who is managing the information that comes in the survey form?
IT. So Keith Durbin's group.
Okay. But I mean, in terms of sorting it, dealing with it, doing anything?
So that's going to be our job. So the data, the information, and the feedback from the public, employees. Oh, I forgot to mention the survey has a box if you're a Metro employee and you want to check that. We have to get with civil service about what we can and cannot do in terms of promoting or celebrating good ideas. But they can identify, and then if they don't wish to identify, I've told the council in an email that I sent out last week, they can come to you. If they don't want to be known, they can come to you, they can talk to you, and then you submit it under your name. So the information, the suggestions will come in, it's a free-form box with the name and address, and they'll come in to IT, and then IT will be sending them to us in spreadsheet format. So you will have a name, a date, timestamp, and then you will have a description. And then this is on the agenda for the process of how we're going to vet those things just a little bit later, and we can talk about that.
Okay,
So,
sure.
is that good?
Yeah, so if they wish to submit something, but they want to do it anonymously, they can't do it through the website. They would have to notify a council member to do it that way.
Yeah, we discussed that in the last meeting and decided that the quality of the submissions would probably be higher if they're not anonymous, but if somebody really has a reason to remain anonymous, we want that pathway to be open, and that council has acted in that role many, many times, so
Got it.
I thought that was the right solution.
Understand?
And of course, they can come to a member of the committee too,
Right, I got it.
which I'm sure is going to happen.
I'm sure that will.
Okay. Let's see. So it occurred to me after our last meeting, and I'm going to apologize to council members because you guys already know all this stuff, but you're going to have to just be bored here for a few minutes.
You're not gonna ask us to take a quiz, are you?
You take a quiz the first and third Tuesdays of every month.
All right.
So,
People in the audience.
yeah, if anybody
Okay,
wants
so
to,
you've got-
we're going to put this on the website as well. I apologize too for the black and white copies. We don't have color
All right,
capabilities.
so I've got two more for any
Cost-saving measure.
committee members that show up. I think Tracy's running late.
We'll have, again, it'll be on the website too, so you can look at it, peruse it at your leisure. Okay, so I'm going to just do a little monologue here, interrupt and ask questions if you have them. So the Metro budget, it's divided up into funds, and there are four major funds. The ones that you're going to be most interested and care about are the general fund and the schools fund. That's where most of the money that flows into the government goes. There are debt service funds, of course, and capital funds, but the four major ones are general debt, schools, and schools debt service fund. The metropolitan government has two taxing districts, if you didn't already know that. One is the General Services District, which is a rate of 2.75 mil per 100 assessed property. And then the USD, which is the core, and then due to the courage of one Sam Coleman, a lot of Antioch. I expanded it too in my district. But there is about a 40-cent difference between people living in the GSD, which over time has actually collapsed. I went back and looked in the 90s, the 80s and 90s, and the spread was much wider for the USD. Over time, it's collapsed to reflect that the services between the USD and the GSD are really pretty much the same, except in some fairly extreme areas of town. The USD and GSD, this is on the fourth slide. These are the tax rates, and this is a historical perspective. And I just labeled the tax, the last tax increase was in 2014 after our reappraisal. And that, I think, is the only tax increase we've had since 2009. And then I've highlighted the reappraisal years. For those of you that don't know, when we're mandated to have a reappraisal every 4 years, that reappraisal that cannot result in additional revenue to the metro government. So we actually have to lower the property tax rate to reflect that. Historically, we have lowered that property tax rate, then raised it back up in the same year, established a 4-year pay plan, and locked it down for 4 years. We got away from that practice really in 2010, and so of the last 3 appraisals, there's been just one property tax increase.
There was a charter amendment passed, 15 years ago, that limits the ability to do that to the nominal rate that was the previous nominal rate, so that there's a gap between what the rate becomes when it's equalized versus the nominal rate that without triggering a referendum. If it goes above that, it triggers a referendum.
Margaret and John, could you just describe that?
It's the rate that was in effect at the time the referendum
Correct.
passed.
So at $4,
You can see
it
that.
goes
So
down to $3, you
then
have
you've
a
got
dollar
that
to
gap,
play
right.
Okay.
in between.
So we do have it, yeah, we
Without
have,
triggering a referendum.
right, which we are well below.
Oh, yeah.
And-
Yeah, we've got,
453.
Is it 453, is that the number, the cap?
The cap.
Yeah. There is one school of thought that says that's absolutely in violation of state law. We just never actually tried to see if that was the case, and don't need to at this point. So the GSD is, when we levy the taxes, we actually apply a levy amount to each of these funds so that that property tax levy is flowing into the funds. And if you look at the budget levy ordinance, you can see those amounts and how they're broken up. And again, the general fund and the schools fund are really that's where most of the money goes. Yes, ma'am.
Just two slight corrections.
Of course.
The tax rate is 3.155 and 2.755. They do go out 3 decimal points because they don't want to leave money on the table. So it's
Okay.
not 2.75, but 2.755.
Okay.
And the reappraisal years are 2013 and 2017, not 2018. And the next reappraisal will be in 2021, every
Okay.
4 years.
Yeah, these are FYs, so that would be
That's what he was saying. But
Yeah.
We just want to be clear that the reappraisal year are as of 1/1 of the reappraisal year, which
Okay.
would be 2017.
Okay,
Not
thanks.
2018. That would kind of make it, a little bit not accurate.
okay. Thank you, Vivian. Okay, again, the GSD, when the money comes into the government, it's divided up amongst the different funds, and the USD does the same thing on the next page, the USD General Fund and the USD Debt Service Fund. In theory, the reason for the difference in the tax rates is that the USD has a higher level of service. It also has liquor stores.
primary difference now.
What?
That's the primary difference.
It's now the primary difference, isn't it?
There are no liquor stores in the general services?
Nope.
Correct.
That's one reason the
Bellevue.
USD gets expanded sometimes.
I expanded the USD in my district when I was in office, out to Old Hickory Boulevard, and immediately 3 liquor stores popped up. And the only conclusion I could draw,
That red, is that one?
yeah, the conclusion I drew is that Bellevue really needed a drink.
Not to have to drink and drive.
So,
Socializing that.
and the reason for that disparity is because in 1963, when the Metro government was formed, that was the political decision to make. The charter does allow for annexation, and we have done that a couple of times. Sam Coleman doing all of Antioch, which was a real bear to wrestle to the ground, and he did a fantastic job at that. And I think there have been a few others. There was a proposal within the last couple of years to do even more, right?
We did do more,
We did,
but
okay.
it was kind of opt-in by council member district, whether they wanted to or not. So
Yeah.
it ended up not being as broad as was originally proposed, but it still was significant, like almost all of Madison and
Nancy Van Rees did some, did
Pridemore did some.
Yeah. So there's still areas of the county where the USD services are being provided, but at the GSD rate. Is that fair, John?
Yes.
Why
Okay.
is that?
The what?
Why is that?
Political
Yeah.
reasons, also legal reasons. For example,
We
water
did
and sewer.
countywide fire protection back in the early 90s, late 80s.
Yeah.
Somewhere along
And then for,
So in
water,
order
sewer
to do that,
issues,
you had to
safety.
do water and sewer out to the areas there so they could have fire
They could
plugs.
have.
Right.
Well, and also the EPA had some issues with septic systems and other. There were a host of converging reasons that it's occurred, but the tax rate difference remains, even though these other pressures have pushed the. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just have a question. Is there another rate for commercial?
It's the assessed value, Vivian, correct me again if
That
I'm
is
wrong.
right.
The assessed value is different. So the number on which the rate is applied is different.
But you don't have, we don't have, excuse me, a commercial rate and a residential rate?
You do, you have an assessed percentage of the appraised value. Commercial's 40% and residential is 25% of the appraised value. And
that's
that
where you get
becomes
it.
the
Okay.
assessed value.
That's how
The
you.
utility's
I'm
still
sorry.
at 50, or is that all gone away?
That's,
It's still there.
Yeah, because everybody gets out of it.
yeah, and that's not done by us, that's done by
But yeah,
the Tennessee Regulatory Authority,
Right, yeah.
Public Service Commission, blah, blah.
Sorry, I didn't understand that.
Happy to get questions. Property tax collections on the next slide are amazingly resilient, and I have labeled the recession in the next couple of slides. We'll see why. They are very resilient in terms of collections. People like to pay their property taxes even when things aren't going well economically for them, and so that's reflected in property tax collections, which are they're certainly up and to the right, but not anything dramatic. Next slide, sales and use taxes are not very resilient in a economic downturn. And you can see what happened for FY09. It was probably the first year in many, many years where we actually had sales tax collections that were lower than the year before. And I'll show you in a
It
minute.
didn't recover till 12 or 13.
Yeah, it really didn't. And it also has, as the economy has changed, and moved away from, now that since the Wayfair decision, we're going to have, I think, more up, we're going to see that change. But as the economy's changed and moving online, it's been a real difference. And then next slide, all the other revenues we have. Fines, forfeitures, revenues, government agencies is the biggest. That is the state of Tennessee and the federal government. And I would say the vast majority of that goes to schools through the BEP plan and other things. But you can get some sense when you look at this as how we collect money from a lot of different sources. We talk about property taxes and sales taxes, but we do get money from a lot of other places. Okay, and how do we spend it? And again, I've managed, and you'll note how we spend it. You don't see much of a downturn in that recession like you did for revenues. In other words, we continued to spend money through that 09-10 period in the same way that we always had, even though we did see a decline in receipts. The thing we spend the most money on is, of course, education. That's about 42% of the budget. But fire and police are the other two big categories.
Can I?
Yes.
So for the viewing audience who are interested, there's a wonderful tool on the finance website called Balancing Act. That is a much more accessible way to look at this data and understand it, instead of digging through the CAFR or trying to kind of sort out the bar charts here. So for those of you interested, it's interactive, it's easy to use. I'd encourage everybody to go there and check it out.
I haven't used that yet. I saw that for the first time
Yeah.
when I was looking at it.
It's a wonderful tool. A lot of cities around the country use it.
Oh, that's great. Okay. So again, the major expenditures are law enforcement, fire prevention, and education. And when you're talking about managing the budget, you're really talking about those three things, and everything else is marginal and incremental to the bottom line. As you noticed in the bar graphs, the spending levels didn't respond to the recession. And the way we buffer ourselves from those downturns and allow us to use revenues or to have access to revenues is we put money away in what we call the fund balance, or the rainy day fund is the popular term for that. And that allows us to spend down that when things are tough, and that allows us to equalize things. And you can see, here's how we've been using, this is use of fund balances over the last few years. The recession, obviously, we used some money, but if you look at 2016 and 17, we used some money there too, even though we weren't in a downturn. Metro fund balances have been a topic of conversation, and that's why I'm including it in this spreadsheet. They have been, these are through FY18. The FY19 numbers are just estimated, obviously. These have been declining over the last few years, in part because we've been using fund balances to balance the budget. Another thing that has come up in the political conversations is the use of debt service expense. This has been, I know, something that you guys have talked about, Jim, a lot in the council. One of the reasons that it has become an issue is because in 2010, we really got away from a way of issuing debt that had been in really our DNA for the last 30 or 40 years, which is the use of level debt. So every year you pay pretty much the same interest, pretty much retire the same principal year in and year out. Now, there have been exceptions to that over the years, but that was sort of the general attitude for quite some time over quite a number of administrations. A lot of that had to do with Bill Snodgrass, who was the comptroller at the time, who was quite micromanaging of bond issues, some would say. In 2010, we refinanced our debt with that downturn, and we pushed principal retirement out into the out years, paying less principal and more interest, so no longer level mix between those two. And that has caused us to tap into our rainy day funds here recently, with other revenues not really making up the difference. And that's a fairly complicated topic. Did I do that justice?
I think you did.
Okay.
Well, on this topic, because this is retrospective, and to, I think, put into context some of, as you were saying, discussions around this, this is prior to a $775 million offering that happened in October, and then another $1.1 billion that is contemplated to pay for current obligated spending. So this is not looking at the effect of what would be close to $2 billion worth of additional bond offerings that have been committed since this table and are expected to happen next year and then about 18 months after that. So you look at this and you go, it seems more in steady state than what is going to be happening in the next 36 months in terms of debt service.
Of course, there's debt retirement you have to net against that.
There is, last year, $140 million worth of debt retirement. That happens about a year, but you're really looking at $1.9 billion in GO debt that is currently either been issued or on the books. So for whatever committee looks at revenue, just to put a footnote in this conversation.
Okay. Then another topic that's been circulating politically that I wanted to address in this overview is the use of tax increment financing. Tax increment financing is an economic development tool, and what it does is it is redirected from the general fund of the metro government to projects that are being done in redevelopment districts, which is largely downtown, but Bellevue also has a recently added redevelopment district. It has grown over the last few years, ticking up a little bit as projects came online, I think the last couple of years, but as a percentage of expenditures, and this is leaving aside any philosophical discussions that one might want to make or have about the use of TIF, it is a tiny part of the budget, less than 1%.
This is what the Mendez Committee is dealing with.
Yeah,
That's right.
and they're dealing with it separately, but because it's been in the conversation about the budget, I just wanted to touch on that. So everybody has the context around what it is. Another conversation that I've detected from the council and from others is the hotel occupancy taxes. We, for the FY19 budget, tapped those for police protection, Jim, right?
No.
No, we tapped it for something. It was $9 million?
The hotel occupancy tax, the Music City Center did send $7.5 million through a memorandum of understanding.
Okay.
sort of a one-time payment, which is, and I'd love to hand this out to people, a one-time payment. That is, I think that may be what you're talking about. The city does get 1/6 of the hotel tax, which is about $12 million, out of, in effect, $95 million that's collected from hotel taxes. There are other tourist taxes as well. So
it was connected to, this is the one time that came last year.
The 7.3.
And I think it was kind of a memorandum of understanding, and it dealt with paying back
so
for
the
protection or security.
Payment in the current fiscal year, $7.5 million, that sounds right, was kind of to reimburse Metro for some police and public works related expenses associated with convention center operations. The MOU also included language for payments going forward as well, but not as
Not as
same
much.
level. Yeah, it was.
How much, do you remember what it was? Was it like
I think
3
the
million?
base is 2.5, but it depends on total collections. I think I don't have the MOU.
But the money went to the general fund.
Money did go to the general fund.
It didn't go to pay for a specific thing.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it was just.
Okay.
And here, just following up, because this is dealt with in the footnotes of this, and I think it's something that people in the committee, and if there are extra copies, this is passed in December, the date comes from, it's on the website, the Convention Center Authority audit, which covers the $7.5 million that we're just talking about. And in that, I think page 11 in particular shows the tourism tax revenue, which is not hotel tax. Hotel tax is a component of the tourism tax revenue on page 11, the $102 million that the Music City Center collected. And then on page 17, as per accounting standards, it breaks out the cash and investments owned by the Convention Center Authority, and that's $223 million. And then otherwise, the $7.5 million is reflected in the footnotes for this. And another handout here, if you don't mind. Again, just everybody, I have a feeling on this committee's going to end up with.
Are you putting these on the website?
Yeah, we'll put everything on the website.
On the website.
We'll be a little bit more organized on this paper next time. I
No,
apologize.
I didn't mean to sound critical.
No.
Well, if we have any copies, if you didn't mind handing them over. And then this is in terms of taxes for the convention, again, for your files, this is the Tourism Development Zone Tax District, for which the MCC collects sales taxes. And then this goes from I-40 in the west over to the Cumberland River. And so that this is much discussed, but rarely do people actually have this exhibit in front of them.
And the hotel taxes are pretty straightforward. Everybody's paid those when they've stayed in a hotel. There's $2.
We do.
It is one of the most overtaxed industries ever. It's amazing.
Richard Fulton always said if a local person complains about the hotel tax, they're doing things they shouldn't.
That was pretty funny.
We just held a botillion in a hotel, and I tell you, it was not
He
even.
sort of muttered under his breath.
What he said was,
I like that one.
so the hotel, that's pretty straightforward. The TDZ is a little less straightforward. That is, as John mentioned, the Tourist Development Zone is actually sales taxes collected above an established baseline. So it assumes that those taxes or receipts are going to grow over time naturally, and it's meant to capture additional sales tax revenue that is the result of tourists coming to town and going out to eat and to bars and restaurants. I think, as John's pointed out, and I think almost everybody agrees, it's capturing a lot more than that.
So just to be clear then, in the downtown area itself, you have the tourism development zone add-on, if you will.
Well, it actually extends beyond.
But I mean, but there is also a local add-on that's just for the downtown.
CBID, yeah.
CBID, that is a property tax.
Yeah, immediately downtown CBID, again, I appreciate John Cooper being here, voluntarily has formed an association which upcharges the property tax for services in their district.
Right.
administered by the Downtown Partnership.
And it's 22.5 cents? No.
I don't know what it was just re-upped
Yeah.
last year. I don't remember what the new,
Is this used to provide additional services to the?
cleaning and the people with yellow shirts.
Ambassadors.
The people we see around.
Okay.
There's also a Gulch bid and now a Century Farms bid, and there may be others, where voluntarily local groups are increasing their property taxes for services that are supplementary. I think everybody would want that carefully said, to the basic services being provided by the city.
There's also an add-on for the sales tax in the downtown area. Is that a quarter of a percent?
It's a 0.25%.
I think it's a 0.25% that goes for tourism marketing related stuff.
In addition to this?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I just want to understand how their layers work.
John, would you mind in terms of the ongoing amounts of money that are coming back to the city, which is like, you think it's 2.5, I'm not sure what it is. Would you find out that number and just send it to Emily so we would know?
Yeah, from that MOU? Yeah.
Is there just maybe like a simple grid that would just kind of lay out the different additional funding sources? I don't want to call them taxes necessarily. And what comes to,
I think we have a volunteer for the revenue committee.
well, just what goes where, right? I mean, just what goes to which purposes, because that's what I'd like to understand.
And Vice Mayor, on page 30 of the audit, in the second paragraph, it goes through the John's memory, as always, is excellent, to do the $2.5 million baseline on that for supplemental payments. But in terms of the Revenue Committee, in terms of the chair's appointments, I do think it would be, this is not really ever broken down by the council, which is where the hotel tax and the tourism zone sales tax and the other tourist taxes, they're not particularly budgeted. So,
But we know the revenue coming in. Either they go to general fund or they're going into these entities that spend them for supplementary services or.
and one analysis would be, if you take the $102 million worth of hotel taxes or tourist taxes to the MCC, then there's another $25 million worth of hotel taxes that goes to the Visitors and Convention Bureau. And then I think, as the chair lady has pointed out, you have TIF funds and then abatements, and very quickly you come up with a number in excess of $150 or $60 million, which is in this space fundamentally.
TIF funds are essentially net, they're debits, not credits, right? I mean,
They're debits against.
against the cities, against city funding.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
So on the last slide, and I can't believe I did this, but there should be one more slide, but copier did not cooperate with me. Let's put that on the list. The Convention Center Authority balance has been up and to the right. They have in unencumbered cash, cash and cash equivalents that they can spend. It's about $100 million. John, you mentioned earlier the $220 million number. That includes certain capital investments and some other stuff that isn't quite liquid. Now, that fund balance of roughly $100 million in the Convention Center Authority, compared to the Metro general funds and schools and other fund balances, the general government also has about $100 million in unencumbered reserves.
This unencumbered is not,
This is
not against the bonds or anything?
No, this excludes that held for debt service and that held for investments in capital assets. So this is the.
But the revenues that resulted in that do have some
Bond obligation.
restrictions on what they can be used for. So it's unencumbered maybe for convention center purposes, but that doesn't mean it's, like.
Generally available.
Yeah.
We have to meet certain tests, but just to give you some sense of the scale.
What has been the use of those funds?
The bond proceeds,
The reserve funds.
the unencumbered reserves? For the Metro general government, We've used it to
No,
balance.
no, I'm talking about the MCC.
For the MCC,
They've acquired additional property.
And they're building a
That's right.
parking
They're
garage.
adding on
Yeah,
to.
that's right, they were going out the side over there. Yeah, okay, got it. Sorry, thanks.
What's the pages? Did you say a page is missing?
yeah, I messed up at the printer.
What is that page?
That's the same printer, we've had since I was.
I
the
understand,
first time.
but what is it? What's the page
It's
that's missing?
the.
Ran on a
it's
platform to
the-
fix that.
I did, I'm going to get that fixed.
It's the fund balance for the general government. And instead of going up, it's going down. And the number for schools, general fund, and 2 debt service funds is about $100 million today. So for the $2.2 billion for this government, you have about $100 million in unencumbered reserves. And for the MCC, Convention Center Authority, which has got about a $25 million budget, you've got $100 million. Okay, does that?
No, that's fine. I just,
Okay.
you had kind
Yeah,
of strung us out there and said that there's a page missing. So I pledge to Commissioner Getz that I will fix the copier. Okay?
Thank you.
Or at least find out where that page went and then hand it on back.
Danielle's got it back there
Okay,
somewhere.
I got
don't
it.
know.
Something different than this one.
What?
Something different than this one.
No, that's it.
You printed your own
It's in
copy.
the,
Okay.
it's in the packet.
Okay, all right. So that's the, if you look at, what slide number is that?
They're not numbered.
They're not numbered.
It's
Sorry, that's a habit of mine not to number them because it's.
toward the back. It's the one after use of fund balances. That line starts one right after that one.
Also pledge to get page numbers put on these things.
I don't do page numbers. I've never done page numbers.
All
You're
right.
going to have to break me of.
Well, when you get it, I'll just come by and put the numbers on.
Normally, educators always tell the students to number your pages.
That's right.
Okay, yeah, so this shows the Metro fund balances, and you can see they've been falling, which is, and this is why we're here, we are living in a time of great prosperity, and you're supposed to be salting things away, not spending things down. So, are there any other questions about, do we feel like we have a level understanding of what it looks like? Okay.
Well, the hotel tax, I guess I'm looking for a little bit more information on that. So, schools does not get into that pile of money at all, right? So basically, we're just looking at property tax and that kind of thing.
For schools?
For schools.
Sales tax.
And sales tax.
We give 2/3 of our sales tax to schools.
And pass-through money from the state and federal government. Those are the 3 primary sources of revenue for schools.
Will there come a time when they could tap into hotel tax?
I would take it as state law change.
Okay.
So the issue on TIF has been that reduced revenues that could have been shared with schools. There was a hit to the schools based upon the amounts of money that went to the tax increment payments.
It actually hits each of the funds. Schools obviously having to take a lot of it because of
Their size.
such a large size.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is treated as a debit against their appropriation. Okay, so if there are no more questions and everybody feels comfortable with that overview, I'm going to move on to, we talked in the last meeting about dividing up our responsibilities, dividing up the government. I've always wanted to divide the government.
I'm worried about this, dividing up the government. Does that plenty well.
Divide up the government, and
As she reaches into the bag of
Brian gives me
cashews.
cashews,
Yeah.
and here's some cashews. And what I did was I took the major areas that are in the budget, general government, fiscal administration, administration of justice, law enforcement, and I assigned those to, I didn't make all the assumptions, I assigned them to those people I thought would enjoy working on that particular topic. I didn't make any assignments for Brian, Margaret, and Stan, because I think we sort of envision you guys as supporting the work of the committee, asking questions and lending your expertise, rather than having to do this work. Is that okay with everybody to?
I think you're going to get a lot of nodding.
Okay.
In other words,
We don't want them to feel left out.
It's okay.
We'll talk about your role here in a minute, but that's what I thought that you would provide.
Yeah, I would think we would be a resource for all the groups.
Right.
We're also non-voting too, right? So,
Yes.
I mean, that's, yeah.
So I divided this up now. I'm going to pass this around, but I'm going to tell everybody that if you think these are really bad ideas, you just tell me, okay? And I can change them. And Dave, I've already warned you about this.
Yeah, I know.
You've got too much expertise. So what what I tried to do here is put people's interests to the extent that I knew about it, with a department. And if I fell short, please tell me. Dave is on a couple of things because of his considerable experience as F&A commissioner, particularly on Medicaid issues and particularly on pass-through grants and so forth, which is really important to schools as it is to the health department. So,
I'm glad you put Tracy on a lot of things because she's not here.
well, they're all constant. Most of them are state.
I understand.
Yeah. But
And I'm not on any of it.
she's no. I left the council members' office
Okay.
to act as resources, but and to, shake trees when necessary.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Well, you've got to nake on a couple.
Oh, I do have to take
Yeah.
on a couple. Yeah, Jim. Oh, here you are, right there, next to me.
Oh, okay. So I'm right here. Okay, I got it. Okay,
Sorry.
now I feel better.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm missing you. Where are you?
He's right next to
just
me
wrote it.
on fiscal administration. I must have left it off when I was
Oh,
writing it. So is it, I guess everybody okay with what I? Yeah.
Notice that metro water is not listed.
Yes, good point. Okay, so I did not include any of the enterprise funds, like Metro Water and what else? The District Energy, are they still an enterprise fund? And because state law so encumbers them, that we really, and I think that would not be a good use of time. However, the Revenue Committee is going to look at possibilities and sources of revenue that might include sources, especially with the stadium debt, being retired in the next few years. So
So that means that he can't leave.
no, you can't leave.
No. He was hoping, I think, that since he wasn't there, that.
We're not going to talk about revenue today, so you could leave if you want to. So I just want to know, any questions or concerns?
I noticed, I thought the Nashville General Hospital was outside of our purview.
It is, but public health is not. And while we can't make any recommendations about, we certainly can. It's a large amount of money, and it's something that I think would be difficult to avoid talking about. But we are, yes, we're not to make any recommendations. But public health is not included.
So tell me, so I've got the list. So
Okay.
what is everybody's responsibility in terms of doing it?
All right, so if you look at the back of your agenda, I have come up with 8 questions that I think, and then you can add or subtract as appropriate, are good questions to direct towards the departments. Keep in mind, they're going to go through budget here soon, so we don't want to be a burden to them, so I wanted to keep it pretty easy. They think about this stuff all the time. They're going to have to think about it for their budget requests. But I also know that if I was running a department and there was a commission that was looking at the budget and they didn't call me, I would be pretty unhappy about that. So, what I'd like to see is that for each area of responsibility, that each member of the commission take a look at that department, have a conversation with that department head, ask some of these questions, and start developing recommendations that meet the charge of the commission, which is cost avoidance, cost savings, cost recovery, which is not in the ordinance, but really comes with that. And that would be a really great question for cost recovery, is something you want to talk about with the codes department, for example, and the planning department. Cost avoidance, might be more appropriate in the public works department. I'm making that up. So that's kind of what I envision. And then in addition to that, the committee will be meeting twice a month, and we'll be getting these ideas coming in from the public. So the idea is for each member to be very well educated about their particular area of the government, so that they can speak to it and its needs and challenges, and then be collecting ideas and thoughts on how to change things.
And do you have so you can ask the questions, but do you want it back in a format so everybody else can understand?
I would expect the committee members to put it in a format that they can then share with the other members of the commission.
And would there be just
and published, of course, on the website.
Right. And so since we're dealing with it in several other different ways with the council, is there an idea to put it in a form, some basic form, so everybody's kind of following the same format? So somebody doesn't, so John Cooper doesn't do a 30-page report,
Okay.
and then I come in with just a spreadsheet that lists them out, basically.
Well, we'll read yours and we won't read his.
I understand. So it might be beneficial for you to think through, if you take.
Do you have anything that you're using, a template in council that you're using?
I think we could probably come up with one. It's just basically a form where you can just fill in the blanks and go, you got your questions, which department, and you just type in the information for the questions.
Sort of a generic
Yeah,
form.
just a generic form. And then you can put whatever you need to, and then you have notes at the bottom where you can actually put some additional information that you want to. But that way, if we put it onto the website, it all looks the same, and so you're basically getting it.
Right.
I was talking to Talia this morning, and I know that OMB is asking departments for certain information for this
It's in the budget.
committee.
Budget request.
Is that these questions, or are those
No.
different?
Those
Okay.
those go to the charge of the committee.
Got it.
Okay. And that is very immediate this budget cycle.
Okay.
What could you do to save money? What could you do to avoid costs? Because this has a 3-year charge, what I'm also trying to do concurrently with that effort is to develop more long-term understandings of the things that are preventing efficiency, preventing cost savings, making the government run on time. Is there a board out there that only takes checks and doesn't take credit cards? Things like
Until recently, yes.
knew the answer. Things like that are longer term. You're not going to be able to affect those kinds of changes between now and April 1. But a department head is going to be able to say in its budget request, here are some ideas I have that can be incorporated into the budget, and that can happen as part of an April 1.
So on 1 and 2, I may have a starting point for you.
Oh, great.
I've got, when I started this job, I created an inventory of all of the performance measures used across every department. And I think if you start there with the departments when you have your conversations, you're going to hear that there's been kind of varying degrees of adherence to them. They used some departments, were very rigorous about it. Others have not been. But I do have it all in a spreadsheet.
Okay, can you share that?
Yeah, I'd be glad to send that.
And where are the underlying sources of where are those measures?
So they
kept?
used to, before I started, there was a document that finance required from departments during the budget process.
Results matter.
Well, that was the
Goes back, that
genesis
was
of
the-
it, right?
started
But
it.
but there was, I can't remember what the exact
Make fun
document was
of that,
called
but-
that came from the departments.
Wish we kept up
But, so anybody want to wager a guess on how many different performance measures we have across all metro departments?
Are they geared for each department? They're
Yes.
different? Oh, gosh.
1,352
It's got to be in the thousands.
guitar pickers in Nashville.
That's not bad. It's close to 2,000. There are close to 2,000 performance measures
Wow.
across all of the departments.
Okay. Well, that looks like an
So,
opportunity.
yeah, I'll send that
So, but
along.
where does that information reside? Where do you find it?
In a spreadsheet.
No. I know you've got what they are, but where are the
So-
measures themselves, and where they go back over time?
So I've got
That's what
about
you're
10
looking for.
years, I
It's-
think,
okay.
right? And they used to be submitted to finance along with their annual budget request.
Right.
That got discontinued at some point along the way the last few years. Some departments have since undertaken a fairly
If we ask them
serious
to
strategic,
fill in the
like water,
gaps.
for example. Has published a new strategic plan, and so some of them will align to what they're using now, some of them won't. Other departments have probably done the same. Other departments haven't touched those things in a while.
If you ask them to fill in the gaps, would you get a negative response?
I'm not going to comment on that.
But if there's absence of measures, that's important information to know, I think, for the commission.
The question is, if you're not using it, what would you use today?
Right, yeah, what tells the public that you're doing, you're meeting your own standards. These are more, back to the original question, these are more longer term kind of things, while we focus on the shorter term stuff through the budget request and then also the revenue committee that is going to be formed when we move on to, division of responsibilities, we're still on that. So if any questions about this, is everybody happy with that, or?
So we will, I'll talk to the council office and see if we can come up with a form.
Okay.
Okay, that you could then, we just send everybody and you can put the name and then you can type in the rest of it.
Okay.
That shouldn't be that difficult. So I'll see how fast we can get that to everybody. And then the question is, obviously we're on a tight time frame.
Yeah.
How quickly are you thinking about getting these things back in?
I'm going to open that up to the commission for thoughts on how, we have an April 1 report due, which means walking that back, I would think we would need a March 1 return, no later than, in order to put an actual report together for the council and mayor. Is that fair?
Is that okay?
If we can get it done in 30 days, yeah, I
I was going to say even faster. I was thinking that you do it by the middle of February.
Okay, middle of February, and then if we got any laggard departments or laggards, we can.
Of course, Ms. Kane has like 10 of these things. And she's not here.
She's a Wonder Woman.
She'll do a great job. I know. Yeah, okay.
Well, the budget submissions from the departments will be due about mid-February.
Oh, perfect.
Or early
Okay.
February, actually. And so if you kind of mesh with that, obviously the performance measures that Brian was referring to, a lot of departments kind of use the same ones from year to year, or slight modifications from year to year.
All right, so we want to set a February 15 return date to have this information pulled together on a template, which council office will guide us on. And then, of course, that will combine with our the budget request information, and then the information coming from the public. Okay. All right.
Ray has a question.
Then, yes.
I'm sorry. Will all of this information that you're collecting, and will that also be on the website?
Yes.
For us to look at so that we can make suggestions as well?
Yeah, yes. You can make suggestions today.
Yeah, I know, but I don't have enough knowledge
Oh,
yet.
okay,
So,
yeah, you
I
will.
mean, I want to look at what's really going on.
Okay.
Because the budget is like 900 pages.
Yeah.
So,
easy reading.
You read them a lot?
I have read.
So anyway, I
Let me
just wanted to
let
know
me
if
just
all of
point out
this,
that I
and
actually have.
and your assessments, your assessments that he's going to make the form for, is going to be on the website as well?
Yes. We're going to put everything out there as much as it is technically possible to do so,
Thank you.
in a form that everybody can use. Okay, so revenue, we have, even though we're focused on cost avoidance, cost cutting, but there may be worth looking at revenue. Revenue is politically much as difficult as some cost cutting, maybe more, but still worth a look. And so I think a subset of us that are interested in tax policy, I was going to suggest that we focus on different revenue sources, and that is absolutely going to include Dave Getz, and certainly John Cooper, and I'll volunteer. Is there anyone else that wants to be involved in that? Okay. Okay. All right. Since we're missing a couple, I could ask them, or have the council ask them by email, forwarded emails. All right, so Dave, Rod, Emily, and John. Okay. All right, then we talked a little bit about this in the last meeting, and I'm trying to keep these two things, keep this close to an hour. So if we could, we don't have to make any decisions today, but the process for review of submissions that come in, particularly from the public, I think a department head by now already knows what their limitations are as far as the law goes and what makes sense financially. But I guess I want to open that up to the commission as well. Do we want to review the submissions, make some judgment calls on your own? Do you want to make those calls and then contact finance and legal when you're questioning that? I mean, if somebody says, let's raise the sales tax, we all know that requires a state law change and isn't something that can happen, here.
We could do a local half-cent.
Yeah, we have half-cent in room in ours.
By referendum.
But we don't have, how much is a half-cent raise? Stan, do you know?
I used to know.
Okay.
Well, it's $425 million divided by 2.5.
And it's subject to referendum too, right? Yeah. So that's that's not likely to happen.
But your point is well made. That when something comes in and somebody says, let's raise it to
It's about $100
1 cent,
million.
we can't do that.
Right, or let's tax tourists more. Well, that again requires a state law. I think we mostly know those things, but if your department is codes, for example, or you've got the planning department, one of the things that I thought that the former codes director did a great job of was coming in periodically and making sure cost recovery. He was recovering his costs through the appropriate fees, and that's an exercise that maybe hasn't been done across the government uniformly. That could certainly be considered.
Well, it seemed like in Atlanta, just looking at their report, is they had some areas like tax reform that they said this will require state action or something beyond what we're able to do or what Metro's able to do, and whether we want to categorize things like that longer term. Because also, like you said earlier, our main focus is on the 20 budget.
Right.
So some of those things, even if we wanted to do, wouldn't be immediately beneficial to that process.
Right.
The other thing I was wondering, you may be wanting to get to, is how are we going to quantify the impact of the suggestions in terms of putting a dollar value on what are we getting for those savings?
And that is the role that finance will play. What I want to avoid, though, is burdening them with, and the law department, with any requests that aren't really viable for one reason or another, which is why I think there needs to be some sort of vetting process at this level before we use Stan and Margaret's time to look any more. I want if it gets to that level, I want it to be something that's very serious.
So what if you had, I think what you're asking is, so people start sending in ideas.
Right.
Let's say that you get 10 ideas, and 7 of them have some real merit. 3 or you can't do unless something changes drastically.
Right.
So do you want those to come into this committee first, everybody kind of talk about them and sort them out and say, you know what, these 7 look interesting. Of those, 4 probably should be reviewed by Metro Legal, and then maybe 3 need to go to Metro Finance just to see. So you actually vet them in here first before you send them back
That,
out.
I think, is what you guys would prefer, right? You don't want to spend your time.
Yeah, I like that too.
But I think each commission member can do a little bit of self-vetting here too.
Yeah.
Like, a UFO pad, or,
Well, I mean, if you're going to charge admission for that, whatever. But I think that was
Parking.
That was vetted down. That was vetted down by the
And I
council.
don't
but there can be some self-vetting. We're going to get from the public, as IT said, some pretty salty input. So we should, we don't need to look at the things that are just outside the realm of
I think I would say, as an elected official, nothing is salty that comes from our constituents. Yeah.
I'm really well spoken. So,
Also, what about grouping similar requests or suggestions that are coming into?
Great idea.
Because there are going to be 50 variations on sales tax.
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
something like that.
yeah, I think that, so I think what the process that we're describing here is that you've got really 3 major sources of information: from the public through the website, from the department heads, and then based on your own inquiry with your phone calls and conversations with the departments underneath your area of the budget. And then the next step is, after receiving that information, is a little bit of self-vetting on what here, remove anything that's physically impossible or just completely unrealistic. And I would keep it relatively wide open when it comes to assessing realism. Things change politically and so forth, but we need not to waste anybody's time. Then bring it to this commission, by which point you will have probably honed it down, grouped things. So if you've got multiple answers or multiple submissions along the same lines, you don't have to go through 5, you can go through 1, those kinds of things. And then we'll make a recommendation as a commission as to whether or not finance or legal should vet it further. Is that?
Yeah, and it sounds like anything that's coming off the web, if people are putting ideas on that one, I would assume would come to you.
It's going to come to me from IT, but the council office will then forward it to everybody.
Okay. But again, I think because we're doing it, so are you, but somebody should be vetting those as well. And I'm looking at you thinking, okay, since it's coming to you, maybe.
I'll vet the.
Yeah, since you're the chair, I think you vet those.
Okay, I'll vet those.
Put it out, the curse words.
Yeah. I clean it up.
Got it.
Okay, and then, so do we have any amendments or changes to that process? Because I think that sounds like that should work. We can always change it if we need to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then the last one, the process, and we can consider this another day. Once we, each of with the revenue committee and then the individual department committees, you will want to we want you to put your findings into a sub-report that will eventually be made and put together with the broader report by February 15th or so. Okay.
But you're going to start budget hearings before too long with the various departments, right?
Yeah, the mayor.
I mean, yeah, when I say
When
you,
do budget
that's-
hearings start with the mayor?
They're in March.
I was about to say they're in spring.
Okay,
early
so
spring.
we will hopefully have our work done before that takes place. Okay. Any other items?
No, that's very good. I mean, it's a lot of work to be done very quickly.
It is.
So obviously I appreciate everybody working on this. But if we hold to our timeframes, I think we may be meeting a lot at the end of February and March to try to figure out what we think should be in there. But
Might have to.
yeah, but right now we're meeting twice a month. It's the,
2nd and 4th,
okay,
Fridays, 11 o'clock.
okay. At some point, When- No, it's fine, but at some point, particularly if we get a lot of ideas in, it may be that we have to take some time,
Okay.
like, some real time and sit there and
Yeah.
maybe go to Dave Guest's house and spend a lot of time.
He doesn't have a house.
I know this, well, he keeps saying that, but we'll find someplace to go.
Go sit in
At my apartment, anytime.
Go to Ray's apartment anytime.
Yes.
Chair Evans, when will this be sent out to the department heads for them to start working on? Is there a date when the committee is going to send the questions out, even though we're not included? I will appreciate that, but for the department.
So for the department heads, they are going to get, if they haven't already gotten, a letter from finance asking them to respond to the charge of the commission, and she's spelled that out. And I don't know if that's gone out yet.
It's not, it's going out with the budget instructions, say, within a week. or so.
Okay, so that's within the week. And then the commission, the phone calls or emails to the department heads, those will begin as soon as time allows, with a target date of having most of their work done on February the 15th. You should expect a call from everybody, or whoever's relevant, but not water at this time. But we might talk about something else.
No rush.
I'd send them the form anyway, just to see what we get. Just
Yeah,
to gather the info.
Yeah, that's one of the, that is one of the best run departments in the city, I've always thought.
I agree.
Doesn't hurt to
It's good.
gather the info.
What?
John Honeysucker, who works for the water department, said it's
Self-serving statements back
he
here.
said it was one of the best. He agreed with your statement that it was one of the best
Well,
run.
I've spent a lot of time over there.
I understand. Okay.
And there are lots of very well-run departments.
Anybody else want to say that they're one of the best
We
run?
love water.
Okay.
We are the absolutely best department in Davidson County, the assessor of property.
The assessor of property is also
Office.
You're on my
staff.
list. You're on my list, Vivian. I'm just letting you know.
Please add one more deputy assessor to our list.
Okay.
We'll be asking you
This
for
is
that.
about
Thank you.
saving money. That's what we're doing.
And what
Revenue
you're trying to
increase.
do to your budget.
I got it. Okay.
Okay, if there is nothing else, shall we adjourn?
I was just, do we have an idea of how many suggestions have already been submitted?
No, I haven't. I've not gotten anything from IT, and so I assume the answer to that question is nothing for the time being. But I'll alert you as soon as I have some. Okay,
Move to adjourn.
second. Thank you.
Okay, Dave. I'm going to.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.